My entire family, every single one of the 23 of them, flew across 15 states just to watch my sister pop a balloon filled with pink confetti, charter flights, coordinated outfits, a $40,000 beachfront resort in Marco Island, Florida. 1 month later, not a single one of them drove 2 hours to attend my wedding. It's too exhausting. My mother said, "We just traveled." My father added, "Maybe next time." My sister texted, 34 days later. My phone exploded 215 missed calls, texts, and voicemails from every single one of them. They had just found out who my husband really was, and suddenly, 2 hours didn't seem far anymore. My name is Ruby Dean. I'm 31 years old, and this is the story of how I lost my family. I realized I never really had one. Before we continue, take a moment to subscribe, but only if you believe one thing: never beg for love that isn't given to you. Let me know where you're listening from and what the temperature is there right now. This is a fictional story, with some details enhanced by AI to make it more vivid, but the emotions are completely real. Now, let me tell you what really happened. A Saturday in March. The day I finally understood something I'd been ignoring my entire life. I had been auditioning for a role in a family that was never going to choose me. The Dean family lived in Westbridge, Maryland, in a 5-bedroom colonial house with a wraparound porch my mother repainted every spring. Always premium paint, always designer brands, because Elaine Dean didn't believe in cheap finishes. Our dining table seated 8, imported linen, crystal glasses, everything perfectly arranged, and every Sunday night. There was a seating order no one ever discussed, but everyone followed. My mother sat at the head. My father, Charles Dean, sat to her right, close enough to agree, far enough to disappear. My younger sister, Chloe, and her husband, Ethan Cole, sat across from each other like they were royalty. And me, I sat at the far end of the table right by the kitchen door, the one that swung open every few minutes and bumped into my chair. Every single time. My mother owned a chain of boutique clothing stores across the state, Maison Elise. She called it her legacy. My father ran a small consulting firm. Stable, predictable, invisible. We weren't poor, but in our house, money wasn't the priority. Image was. Chloe, 4 years younger than me, was the golden child. Former state pageant winner, now a lifestyle influencer with over 60,000 followers. Perfect smile, perfect photos, perfect life. She married Ethan Cole, a real estate developer who drove a black Range Rover and talked about investment returns like it was casual conversation. They lived in a $1.3 million townhouse in Harbor Point. Everything about their life looked expensive, because it was supposed to. And then there was me, freelance graphic designer, 1-bedroom apartment in Brookline Heights, a 2017 Honda Civic with a dent I never bothered fixing. My mother had a name for what I did. She called it Ruby's Little Art Hobby. There's a family photo sitting on the mantle back in that house, taken 3 Christmases ago. If you look closely, you'll notice something. My face is slightly cut off at the edge of the frame, and no one ever fixed it. No one ever even mentioned it. I didn't realize it back then, but exactly 4 months later, every single person sitting at that table would be calling me, begging me, asking for something. And for the first time in my life, I was going to say no. It didn't begin with the wedding. It began with a painting. I was 14 when I entered a statewide young artist competition in Maryland. There were over 1,000 entries that year, and mine won first place. An oil landscape I had spent 4 months working on. My art teacher, Mrs. Callahan, cried when they called my name. My mother had promised she'd be there. Third row, she said, but when I stepped onto that stage, the entire row was empty, while I stood there holding a plaque with my name engraved in gold. My mother was across town at a boutique helping Chloe get fitted for a pageant dress. Mrs. Callahan drove me home that night. I walked in, still holding my award, and my mother barely looked up. She was adjusting Chloe's sash. "Oh, honey, I'm sorry," she said casually. "Chloe's competition is in 2 weeks. You understand?" "Right. Your little painting will still be there tomorrow." It wasn't. It was never displayed. Not in the hallway, not in the living room, not even in my bedroom. I couldn't look at it without remembering that empty row of seats. But Chloe's crown that sat in the center of the living room for years, still sparkling when I finally moved out. When I was 24, I found my painting again. It was in the garage, face down, wrapped in a trash bag, buried under boxes of Chloe's old pageant sashes. That was the moment I stopped painting. Not because I lost the skill, because I lost the audience I thought mattered. It took me years to realize I had been performing for the wrong people all along. I met David in a small coffee shop in Georgetown one October afternoon. He was reading a worn copy of Meditations. I was sketching a logo on my iPad. He asked if I was an artist. I said, "Freelance designer." He smiled. "Same thing, just with invoices." I laughed. He bought me another coffee. That day, he wore a flannel shirt, jeans, and drove a muddy pickup truck. He told me he worked in investments. I assumed he meant spreadsheets and modest accounts. We dated for 8 months before I learned the truth, and it didn't come from him. It came from my best friend, Nora, now a corporate lawyer in DC. We were at her apartment, sharing a bottle of wine, when she turned her phone toward me. "Ruby, your boyfriend is on the Forbes 30 under 40 list." I stared at the screen. David Cole, founder and CEO of Colford Capital, a private equity firm managing billions. Same man, same quiet smile. The room felt like it tilted. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. He just told me why. "When I was 12, my dad's partner stole everything." He said, "I watched money turn people into strangers. I promised myself I'd never let that define my relationships." He looked at me calmly. "I needed to know if someone would stay, even if they thought I had nothing." I stayed, and I kept his secret. Not for him, for me. I wanted my family to love me, without knowing what his name was worth. Nora warned me, if they ever find out, they'll suddenly care. I told her she was being dramatic. She told me she was being honest. David proposed on a quiet Saturday morning. No crowd, no cameras. Just the two of us sitting on a bench overlooking the river at Great Falls. The ring was simple but stunning, a deep blue sapphire set in platinum. To anyone who understood jewelry, it was exceptional. To my family, it was just nice. That night, I posted a photo in the family group chat. His arm around me, the ring catching the light. He asked. I said yes. 14 minutes later, my mother replied, "That's nice, sweetie," then immediately followed with girls. Have we decided on the color theme for Chloe's gender reveal? I'm thinking blush and gold. That was it. That was my engagement announcement. When Chloe got engaged 2 years earlier, my mother hired a photographer, threw a party for 80 guests, and posted non-stop for days. I know. I liked every single post. I sent out my wedding invitations 3 months in advance. The venue was Silver Creek Vineyard in Maryland, tucked into rolling hills, less than 2 hours from my parents' house. I chose it because the wisteria would be in full bloom in early spring, draping over the ceremony arch like something out of a painting, and because it was close. No flights, no excuses. 6 weeks passed. Not a single RSVP came back. So I started calling. My father answered on the third try. He hesitated, cleared his throat, then said, "Your mom thinks it might conflict with Chloe's schedule. Her baby isn't due for 4 months." Dad. Silence. The kind I had known my entire life. I should have understood right then. But hope has a way of blinding you just enough to keep believing. Chloe's gender reveal took place at a luxury resort in Florida. There was an event planner, a balloon installation that probably cost more than my rent, a live jazz band, even drone footage capturing the moment pink confetti exploded over the ocean. My mother paid for everything. 23 family members flew in, aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't seen in years, all dressed in coordinated blush outfits because my mother had sent out a detailed theme guide. I went too. Paid for my own flight, my own hotel, sat at a table near the back, close to the kitchen. Same seat I'd always had, just with better lighting. David came with me. Simple polo, khakis, quiet as always. No one asked him anything, except Ethan. During dessert, he leaned over and said, "So, what do you do investments?" David replied. Ethan smirked. Like day trading, David took a sip of wine. Something like that. Then Ethan turned away, already talking about himself. "I'm trying to get a meeting with one of the biggest investment firms on the East Coast," he said loudly. "If I land it, we're talking real money." David sat 3 feet away, unbothered. I squeezed his hand under the table. He didn't react. Near the cake table, I overheard my mother talking. 40,000. She said proudly. I put in 15 myself. Only the best for Chloe. I stood there, thinking about my wedding invitation sitting unopened in mailboxes. And I still clapped when the confetti fell. The responses finally came in, 4 weeks before my wedding. Every single one said the same thing. Decline. Aunt Karen said they were too tired from traveling. She had just flown to Florida. A 2-hour drive to my wedding was suddenly too much. Uncle Mark said it was too far for a weekend. He had flown across the country for a party. Chloe said she couldn't travel because of the pregnancy. She was 5 months along. The same 5 months she had danced all night in heels at her own event. My father texted, "I'll try." He didn't. He never came. 10 days before the wedding. My mother called. I recorded it. Nora had told me months earlier. Start documenting everything. I didn't question her. "Sweetheart," my mother said gently, "it's just a small ceremony." Right. Not like Chloe's event. That was something special. Don't take it personally. I stared at my invitation on the desk. Cream paper. Gold lettering. March 15th. The day that was supposed to matter. 23 invitations. 23 rejections. And my mother still had the audacity to call my wedding insignificant. I didn't cry, not that night. I opened my laptop, screenshotted every message, every excuse, every RSVP, saved them all in a folder. Nora had said, "Document everything, not for revenge, for clarity." At the time, I didn't fully understand what she meant. I would soon. The morning of my wedding arrived quietly. Silver Creek Vineyard stretched across rolling green hills, the ceremony arch covered in soft purple and white flowers. It looked like something I would have painted years ago, back when I still believed moments like this would be shared. 60 white chairs were set out, 30 on David's side, 30 on mine. By 3:15, every seat on his side was filled. His mother, Eleanor Cole, sat in the front row, elegant and composed. His brother had flown in from California, his closest friends, his colleagues, people who chose to be there. 30 chairs, 30 people. On my side, there were 6. Nora, 3 college friends, 2 former co-workers, and 24 empty chairs. The wedding planner leaned toward me gently. "Do you want to move some guests over?" I looked at those empty seats, sunlight falling across them like a still photograph. "No," I said. "Leave them." I wanted to remember. 10 minutes before the ceremony, David found me. He held my hands and said quietly, "Their absence isn't your failure. It's theirs. And one day, they'll understand what they missed." I nodded. For the first time, I believed him. During the ceremony, his mother read a poem about people who stay and people who choose to love without conditions. I cried, not because I was hurt, because I finally understood something I had refused to accept for years. I had spent my entire life asking for love from people who didn't have it to give. If you think my family was right to ignore my wedding and choose my sister's event instead, comment support. But if you believe that kind of behavior is nothing but cold and careless, comment heartless. Sometimes, what hurts the most isn't distance. It's realizing who was never willing to show up for you. After the ceremony, while guests mingled and laughed under the afternoon light, Nora pulled me aside. She showed me her phone. My mother had posted a photo. Brunch with Chloe. Smiling. Perfect lighting. Caption Mother-Daughter Day. Same time. Same afternoon. 2 hours away from where I stood in a wedding dress. She had chosen Eggs Benedict over my wedding. I looked back at those empty chairs. They weren't a mistake. They were proof. 3 days later, I was still in the family group chat. I didn't leave. Part of me wanted to see what they would say. What they said was worse than silence. Chloe texted first. "So, how was the little wedding? Did you go all Pinterest with it?" My mother followed. "I'm sure it was lovely." "Sweetie, send pictures when you can. No apology, no acknowledgement. Just the assumption that my wedding didn't matter." Ethan added, "Heard your husband works in investments." "Sounds fun." "Day trading." "Right." Then Aunt Karen posted a photo from a resort in Mexico. Needed this after all that traveling. She had just told me she was too tired to attend my wedding. I read every message. Didn't reply to a single one. I just took screenshots. Slowly, carefully, like collecting evidence. That night, Nora called. "Ruby, are you okay?" I was sitting on my couch, laptop open, messages glowing on the screen. David was in the kitchen, giving me space. "I'm done hoping," I said quietly, "and I'm done staying silent." I created a folder, named it Receipts. I uploaded everything: the RSVP cards, the texts, the excuses, the recording of my mother's call, even a comparison list of who flew to Florida and who refused to drive 2 hours for me. Nora had told me to document everything for clarity. Now I understood. Clarity isn't light, it's weight. And for the first time, I was holding it. If you've ever been the one people overlook, the one whose moments get ignored while someone else gets celebrated, I see you. Your story matters too. Then everything went quiet. For 34 days. Nothing. And after that, everything changed. 2 weeks after my wedding, everything began to unravel. Not loudly, not all at once, but in quiet. Steady cracks that no one could ignore anymore. Ethan's real estate company, the one he proudly called his empire, started collapsing under its own weight. His luxury condo project on the coast was supposed to be his defining success. 42 units, rooftop pool, glossy brochures, promises of a lifestyle he could barely sustain himself. On paper, it looked perfect. In reality, it was already falling apart. The contractor pulled out after Ethan missed multiple payments. Without construction moving forward, the delays triggered penalties. Then the bank stepped in. 60 days. That was all he had. Produce millions or lose everything. That was when the panic started. He began calling investors. 12 firms in 2 weeks. 11 said no. Each rejection came back with the same concerns: inflated asset values, missing documentation, expenses that didn't match any verifiable records, hundreds of thousands of dollars that simply couldn't be explained. There was only one option left: Colford Capital, David's company. The last door still open. "If I don't get this deal, we lose everything," Ethan told Chloe one night. The house, the cars, everything. For the first time, the confidence I had always seen in him was gone. At the same time, my mother's business was quietly sinking. 2 of her boutiques had lost nearly half their revenue. Rent increases were coming due. Vendors were waiting to be paid. Staff salaries were being delayed. She needed at least $200,000 just to survive the next few months. She didn't have it, and she didn't have anyone willing to help. My father wasn't doing any better. His consulting firm had just lost its biggest client, a loss he couldn't easily recover from. He didn't know yet that the client had connections tied back to David's network. Everything was beginning to collapse, not in chaos, but in a slow, inevitable chain reaction, like dominoes. And the strangest part, the same family who couldn't drive 2 hours for my wedding had no idea that the answer to all their problems was sitting across from me at breakfast every morning. They had overlooked it, just like they had overlooked me. The truth came out on a Tuesday. Ethan's business partner was preparing a proposal for Colford Capital. Standard process. Research the firm, understand their portfolio, learn who you're dealing with. He searched David's name and found the article, Forbes 30 under 40, founder and CEO, billions under management. The photo stared back at him. Same face, same calm expression. The same man who had sat quietly at their table months earlier, wearing a simple shirt, saying almost nothing. The same man they had dismissed. He stared at the screen, then slowly turned the laptop toward Ethan. "Isn't this the guy from your wife's sister's wedding?" Ethan leaned in. Confusion, recognition, then something else. Fear. 3 seconds. That was all it took. He grabbed his phone and called Chloe. Chloe called my mother. My mother called my father. Within minutes, everything connected. Everything made sense. Everything changed. I didn't hear it from them. I heard it from Nora. And what stayed with me wasn't what they said. It was what they didn't say. Not one of them said, "We should have been there." Not one of them said, "We made a mistake." Not one of them mentioned my wedding at all. The first thing my mother said was, "This changes everything. Call Ruby. Be nice. Be nice." After 31 years of being invisible, of being overlooked, of being treated like I was optional, her plan wasn't to apologize. It wasn't to reflect. It wasn't even to acknowledge what they had done. It was to be strategic, to adjust, to reposition. I sat there, holding my phone, trying to process it, and I realized something that hurt more than anything else. I didn't know what was worse, being ignored all those years, or suddenly being remembered for the wrong reason. 34 days after my wedding, everything shifted again. It was a quiet Saturday morning, the kind that usually starts slow, but not that day. My phone began vibrating on the nightstand, relentless. I picked it up. Dozens of missed calls, messages stacked on top of each other, voicemails, emails, notifications from every direction. Names I hadn't seen appear on my screen in over a month were suddenly everywhere. People who couldn't find 2 hours to show up for me now couldn't stop reaching out. 215 attempts to contact me, and my mother alone had called 12 times. The messages didn't just come, they flooded in, one after another, like a dam had broken overnight. "Ruby, baby, call me back. I miss you so much. Let's have lunch this week. Bring David. We'd love to get to know him better." That was my mother. Her voice in the voicemail sounded soft, almost warm, like nothing had ever happened, like she hadn't told 23 people not to come to my wedding, like she hadn't chosen someone else over me again and again. Then Chloe. "Oh my God. Ruby. Why didn't you tell me David is basically famous? We should all get together. Ethan would love to meet him properly." I stared at the message for a long time. Properly. As if the first time didn't count. As if the dismissal, the smirk, the quiet disrespect had just disappeared. Then Ethan, the same man who had leaned across a table and reduced David to a hobby. His voicemail sounded rehearsed, careful, controlled. "Hey Ruby, I think we got off on the wrong foot. I'd really like to grab a drink with David. Talk business? Talk business." That was what this was about now. Not family, not connection, not me, business. Suddenly, everyone had time. Aunt Karen, who had been too exhausted to attend my wedding, was now asking when she could come visit. Aunt Rachel, fresh off a vacation she had somehow found the energy for, said she had been thinking about me, thinking about me. The words almost made me laugh. My father sent one message. Just one. "I'm sorry. I should have been there." He was the only one who mentioned my wedding, the only one who acknowledged it at all. But even that message didn't feel right. It came too late. It came at the exact moment they realized who David was. It didn't feel like regret. It felt like timing. Like someone had finally realized they missed something valuable. David sat beside me as I scrolled through everything. He didn't interrupt, didn't advise, didn't try to influence me. He just read quietly over my shoulder. Then he said, "Your decision. I'm with you." That was it. No pressure, no expectation, just presence. I turned my phone face down. 2 hours had been too far for them. Now suddenly, distance didn't exist at all. I didn't answer a single message. Not one. 3 days later, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door, and there she was. My mother. Perfect as always. Hair in place, makeup flawless, clothes carefully chosen, holding a gift basket like it meant something. "Ruby," she said, stepping forward and wrapping her arms around me. "I've missed you so much." I didn't hug her back. She didn't seem to notice, or maybe she chose not to. She walked into my apartment without asking, like she still belonged there, like she had never left. Her eyes moved quickly, scanning everything, the furniture, the desk, the details, evaluating. Then her gaze landed on the painting above the couch. She paused for half a second, then moved on. She didn't recognize it, didn't know what it was, didn't know its value, and somehow that felt exactly right. She placed the basket on the counter, turned to me, and got straight to the point. "So David works in finance," she said. "Ethan says he's very successful. We should all have dinner together, as a family." I looked at her, really looked at her. "As a family?" She smiled, smooth and practiced. "Of course. The same family that didn't come to my wedding." Her expression barely shifted. "Oh, honey," she said lightly. "Don't dwell on that. Everyone was busy. Busy." That word again. She waved her hand, like brushing crumbs off a table. "Now tell me about David. What exactly does he do?" That was the moment. Clear, sharp, undeniable. I stepped closer. "You didn't come here because you miss me." Her smile tightened. "Just slightly. You came because you looked him up." For a second. Just a second. The mask slipped. I saw it. The irritation. The calculation. The truth. "That's not fair." "Ruby," she said, "I'm your mother. Then act like one." The words came out steady. Not loud. Not emotional. Just final. I walked to the door and opened it. She stood there for a moment, frozen, like she hadn't expected resistance, like this wasn't how the script was supposed to go. Then slowly, she picked up the basket, turned, and left. I watched from the window as she walked to her car, and there, in the passenger seat, was Chloe. They had come together. Of course they had. This wasn't a visit. It was a plan. When pretending didn't work, they changed tactics. Within 48 hours, everything escalated. Every phone I had started ringing again. Calls, messages, voicemails, different numbers, unknown numbers, relentless. Chloe called first. Her tone was sharper now, frustrated, accusing. "Ruby, Mom is really hurt," she said. "You're being selfish. She just wanted dinner." Is that so hard? Selfish? That word hit differently this time, not because it hurt, but because it didn't. I stood there, listening, thinking about all the years I had made myself smaller, more convenient, more acceptable, just to be included. And now, for the first time, I had said no, and that made me selfish. I didn't respond right away. I just let the silence stretch, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to fix it. I wasn't trying to explain. I wasn't trying to make them understand. I was just done. The pressure didn't stop there. Ethan sent an email, copying Chloe like it was a business meeting. Ruby, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'd love to discuss a potential partnership with David. This could benefit the entire family. Aunt Karen told me not to be difficult. My father texted, "Just come to dinner. It will blow over." And Aunt Rachel posted online, "Family is everything," tagging me so everyone could see. I blocked 8 numbers. They called from new ones. I blocked those too. They started using other people's phones. My apartment began to feel like it was under siege by people who had never once shown up when I needed them. David offered to step in. One call from him could have ended everything. I shook my head. "If you handle this, they won't respect me. They'll just fear you. That's not what I want." He didn't argue. He just made dinner. We ate quietly, the kind of silence that felt safe instead of empty. They thought I was being stubborn. They had no idea I was being intentional. That night, a voicemail came in, 11:14 p.m., my mother's voice, soft, shaking, almost unfamiliar. "Ruby, I know I haven't been perfect. I know I've made mistakes. But I'm your mother. Please don't shut me out. I'm begging you." I sat on the edge of my bed and listened to it 3 times. My chest tightened. Tears slipped down before I could stop them. She sounded real. For a moment, I believed it. My thumb hovered over the call button. Part of me wanted to go back, wanted to be that little girl again, hoping her mother would finally choose her. David stood quietly in the doorway. He didn't say anything. He didn't move. He just waited. And in that silence, I called Nora. "Maybe I'm being too harsh," I said. Her voice was calm. "Open the folder. Read everything again. Then decide." I opened my laptop. The screen lit up the room. I clicked on the folder labeled Receipts. And there it was. A message my mother had sent to Chloe, accidentally forwarded to the wrong chat. "Don't waste your Saturday on Ruby's little ceremony. She'll be fine. She always is." That message had gone to everyone. That was why no one came. Not distance, not schedules. Her decision. I closed the laptop slowly, wiped my face, and remembered the last time I heard her cry. It wasn't for me. It was when she needed something. That was when it finally became clear. Those tears weren't about love. They were about control. If you've ever realized someone's tears weren't for you, but for what they wanted from you, you understand exactly what I felt in that moment. So tell me honestly, have you ever seen that kind of truth? Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once I understood it, I knew exactly what I needed to do. The following Saturday, I sat at the kitchen table, David on my left, Nora on my right, coffee growing cold in front of us, a notebook open. "I'm not trying to destroy them," I said quietly, "but I'm done pretending this is okay. I looked up. If they want access to David, they go through the same process as anyone else. No exceptions, no shortcuts, no family privileges. David leaned back slightly. You should know. David looked at me with that same calm, steady expression he always had when things got complicated. Ethan submitted a proposal to Colford Capital 2 weeks ago. He said, my team already reviewed it. I frowned slightly. And there are problems. 3 major ones. His tone shifted into something more precise, almost clinical. He overvalued his assets by about 30%. The project is missing a required insurance bond, and there's over $300,000 in operating expenses with no documentation, no receipts, no paper trail, just numbers written down and expected to be believed. David leaned back slightly. My team was going to reject it regardless. The deal doesn't make sense. Nora glanced at me. So this falls apart on its own. David nodded. Exactly. This has nothing to do with you. It's just bad business. I sat there quietly, letting that sink in. For the first time. I didn't need to argue. I didn't need to defend myself. I didn't need to fix anything. All I had to do was step back. Stop explaining. Stop smoothing things over. Stop being the invisible bridge between their problems and their solutions. That alone would be enough. But I knew something else was coming. 3 weeks later, David was set to receive an award at a major charity gala. 400 guests. Black tie. The kind of event where influence moved quietly through conversations and handshakes. And I knew my family. If they found out, they would show up. Nora slid a folder across the table. Inside were printed screenshots, RSVP cards, messages, a side-by-side comparison of who had flown across the country for Chloe and who refused to drive 2 hours for me. This isn't for revenge, she said softly. It's for truth. I nodded. I didn't want to hurt them. I just wanted them to see themselves clearly, without excuses. The rejection came on a Monday. Clean, professional, final. After careful review, the investment does not meet our criteria due to financial inconsistencies and risk exposure. Ethan read it standing in his office. Then he sat down. Then he covered his face with his hands. He called Chloe that same afternoon. Later, Nora told me it was the first time Chloe had ever heard him cry. That night. Ethan tried to reach David directly. He called the office line. The response was immediate and polite. Mr. Cole does not accept unsolicited calls. No exception. No access. No second chance. Ethan hung up, sat in his car in silence for nearly 30 minutes. Then he made another call. To my mother. I need Ruby to talk to him, he said. If this deal doesn't go through, we lose everything. My mother didn't pause. Leave it to me. Within a week, she secured a table at the gala, $5,000. Money she didn't have. Charged to a credit card that was already behind. $5,000 to sit in the same room as the man she had never once cared to know. $5,000 to fix something that could have been solved with 2 hours of her time. The irony settled heavily in my chest. While Ethan's world was collapsing fast, my mother's was unraveling more quietly. 2 of her stores were already struggling. Sales had dropped sharply. Rent increases were coming. Vendors were waiting to be paid. She needed money just to stay afloat. But instead of adapting, she had ignored every warning, ignored change, ignored advice, ignored reality. And now reality was catching up. The business she once called her legacy was slipping through her hands. The image she had spent decades building was starting to crack. Everything they believed was stable wasn't. Everything they thought they controlled, they didn't. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't there trying to hold it together. I wasn't fixing the gaps. I wasn't making excuses. I wasn't standing quietly in the background, making sure everything looked fine. I had stepped away, and without me there, everything began to fall exactly where it was always going to fall. What made it worse was that I had already tried to help her long before everything fell apart. 2 years earlier, I had been sitting at that same dining table, at the same seat near the kitchen door, watching everyone talk over me like I wasn't there, and in one quiet moment, I told my mother I could build her entire online business, a full e-commerce website, a brand refresh, social media integration, everything she needed to bring her boutiques into the modern world. I offered to do it for free. A gift. She smiled at me the way adults smile at children who say something unrealistic. "Sweetie, stick to your little drawings," she said. "Retail is a different world." I remember nodding, pretending it didn't matter. But now that different world was closing in on her from every direction. Sales were dropping, rent was rising, bills were stacking faster than she could hide them. She needed at least $200,000 just to keep her remaining stores open. The bank wanted a co-signer, an investor, something solid. She had nothing. Then she heard about David, and suddenly, everything shifted. If David could save Ethan's collapsing business, then surely he could save hers too. Two problems, one solution, and for the first time in years, I wasn't invisible to her anymore. That night, she called my father. "We are going to that gala," she said. "I don't care what it costs." They bought a table they couldn't afford. $5,000 charged to a credit card that was already past due. $5,000 to sit in the same room as the man they had never bothered to know. The next day, David's mother called me. "Ruby," she said gently, "your family just reserved a table for the gala. Is that intentional?" I stood by the window, looking out at the quiet street below. "I don't think they understand what intentional means," I said. The night before the gala, I stood in front of the mirror in David's apartment. The city lights stretched behind me, reflected in the glass. The dress he had chosen was simple, elegant, the kind of beauty that didn't demand attention, but held it anyway. I still kept my old apartment. I never gave it up. I didn't want to forget who I was before everything changed. I looked at my reflection, 31 years old, composed, steady, standing in a place I had built for myself. And yet, all I could see was a 14-year-old girl, standing on a stage, holding an award, looking out at an empty row of seats where her family was supposed to be. That version of me had waited, hoped, believed, and gone home alone. David stepped up behind me, his presence calm and grounding. "You don't have to say anything tomorrow," he said quietly. "Just being there is enough." I met his eyes in the mirror and shook my head. They need to hear it. Not for revenge, not for closure, but for that girl, the one who kept showing up, even when no one showed up for her. At 9 that evening, The doorbell rang. Nora walked in carrying a slim folder. She placed it gently on the counter, just in case. She said, I opened it. Inside were printed screenshots, RSVP cards, messages, proof, a few sheets of paper. That was all. But every page carried years of being overlooked, dismissed, replaced. It wasn't heavy in my hands, but it felt heavy in everything it represented. I closed the folder slowly, looked at myself one last time. For most of my life, I had made myself smaller, quieter, easier to ignore. I adjusted my shoulders. Tomorrow, I wouldn't. The gala was held in a grand hall in Washington, the kind of place designed to impress before a single word was spoken. Tall columns, high ceilings, soft lighting that made everything feel polished and important. Hundreds of guests filled the room, black suits, evening gowns, conversations layered with influence and power. Everything about it felt elevated, controlled, intentional. And somewhere in that room, my family would be waiting, not for me, for what I had become connected to. And for the first time in my life, I was ready to let them see exactly what they had chosen to ignore. The room was already alive with energy before the speeches even began. Hundreds of guests filled the hall. Conversations overlapped. Glasses clinked. Power moved quietly from table to table. David and I arrived together. He wore a tailored black tuxedo, calm as always. I held a small clutch with a few folded pages inside. As we walked in, people immediately recognized him. CEOs, investors, politicians. They shook his hand, greeted him warmly, congratulated him. Then they turned to me. You must be Ruby, one woman said with a smile. David talks about you all the time. I smiled back, polite, composed. Then I saw them, across the room, near the back. At a table pushed slightly to the side, my family, my mother in a bright red dress that tried too hard to impress, Chloe sitting stiffly, one hand on her bag, Ethan adjusting his jacket, my father staring down at the table. They hadn't seen me yet. They were scanning the room, searching for David. They didn't realize I was already there, watching them. The host stepped onto the stage. Please welcome tonight's honoree, founder of Colford Capital, David Cole. The room erupted in applause. David stood. So did I. 400 people clapped. And across the room, everything changed. My mother froze. Her glass paused midair, for the first time in my life. I saw fear on her face. David spoke with quiet confidence. He didn't rush. He didn't perform. He spoke about responsibility, about impact, about what success really means. The room listened. Then he paused, looked directly at me. I want to thank the person who reminds me every day that success isn't about what you build. It's about who stands beside you when you have nothing. My wife, Ruby. The spotlight found me. I stood, and the entire room rose with me. Applause filled every corner of that hall. At their table, everything fell apart. My mother's face drained of color. Chloe gripped Ethan's arm. Ethan didn't move. My father stared down like he couldn't look up. After the speech, I saw them coming. My mother led the way. Posture perfect, smile already in place. Ruby, she said, opening her arms. Look at you. We are so proud of you. She reached for me. I didn't move. Hi, Mom, I said calmly. Interesting you made it here. You couldn't come to my wedding. But this wasn't too far. Her smile flickered. Oh, sweetheart. Don't be like that. We're here to support you. You're here because Ethan needs money. The words landed hard. People nearby turned. The air shifted. For a moment, no one spoke. Then she recovered. This isn't the place. Ruby, you're right, I said. The place was my wedding. 2 hours away. You didn't come. Ethan stepped forward quickly. Ruby, let's talk privately. I have a proposal for David. I opened my clutch, took out a folded page, and handed it to him. This is what you said about my wedding. He hesitated, then took it. His expression changed as he read. That's taken out of context. I didn't respond. I pulled out another page. And this is what Mom sent to everyone, telling them not to come. I read it out loud. Don't waste your Saturday on Ruby's little ceremony. She'll be fine. She always is. My mother's face went still. Chloe started crying. Ruby, you're making a scene, she whispered. I looked at her. No. You made a scene. It cost $40,000 and everyone showed up. I asked for 2 hours. I got nothing. More people had gathered now. No one interrupted. No one defended them. They just listened. I folded the pages, placed them back into my clutch, and closed it. You didn't come to my wedding because it wasn't worth your time, I said. You came here because my husband is worth your money. I know the difference, and now everyone else does too. Ethan dropped the act. Ruby, come on, he said, his voice breaking. This is business. You can't let emotions destroy a deal like this. Before I could respond, David stepped forward. He had been standing quietly the whole time. His voice was calm, steady, undeniable. The deal was rejected 3 weeks ago. Mr. Cole, your financials didn't meet our standards. This has nothing to do with Ruby. Ethan stared at him, speechless, like someone who had just realized the door was never open. My mother tried one last time. She reached for my hand. Ruby, I'm your mother. You can't do this to your family. I gently pulled my hand away. You already chose which family mattered, I said. I'm just respecting your choice. Chloe was crying now, mascara running, one hand resting on her stomach. This isn't fair. Ruby, I'm about to have a baby. I looked at her quietly. I hope you show up for her, I said, the way no one showed up for me. The room went silent. No one moved. No one spoke. My father stood behind them, hands in his pockets, avoiding my eyes. Then finally, he said it. I'm sorry. I should have been there. For a moment, I almost believed him. For a moment, I wanted to be that girl again, the one who thought silence meant kindness. But I knew better now. I know. Dad, I said softly, but sorry. Said here, tonight, doesn't mean the same thing. It just means you need something. I turned away, took David's arm, and walked back toward the main table. His mother was waiting, her smile gentle and real. Behind me, everything fell quiet. For the first time in her life, my mother had nothing to say. The rest of the night drew a clear line. Warmth filled every part of the room except one. At their table. No one approached. No one engaged. They sat there, alone, surrounded by people who had just seen the truth. The shift in the room was immediate. Two board members who had overheard everything quietly moved away. One of them, a woman who had been my father's biggest client, leaned toward her husband and said something under her breath. After that, she never looked in my father's direction again. Ethan made one last attempt. He approached a man near the bar, introduced himself, and rushed through a pitch in less than a minute. The man listened, took a sip of his drink, then said calmly, "I think you should focus on your family first." Then he walked away. Chloe left before dessert. She spent 10 minutes crying in the bathroom before calling a ride and leaving. My mother stayed a little longer. She drank quickly, too quickly, and eventually my father had to guide her out of the room. His face looked empty, like something had finally broken inside him. At our table, everything felt different. David introduced me to the director of the foundation. She needed a designer for a major project: branding, digital campaigns, outreach. We talked for nearly an hour. She liked my work. She liked my ideas. She never once mentioned David. For the first time, I was seen for who I was. David's mother gently squeezed my hand. "You handled that with more grace than they deserved," she said. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. A week later, an article was published. It wasn't about the confrontation. It was about us, about David's work, about the foundation, about me. They called us a partnership built on values, not appearances. My family read every word. I knew because Nora told me they shared it in the group chat, the same group chat I had already left. Then everything began to collapse. The bank moved forward. Ethan failed to secure funding. The project was taken from him. Everything he had invested was gone. His company shut down. The house went on the market. And just like that, the life they had built started to disappear. Chloe moved back into my parents' house. Then another truth surfaced. During the financial review, missing money was uncovered. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. No records. No explanation. But there were patterns. Hotel stays, restaurant bills, a separate apartment. Ethan had been having an affair for months. Through the pregnancy, through the celebration, through everything. She called me at 2 in the morning. Her voice was different. No confidence, no performance. Just real. "Ruby, I didn't know. I'm sorry. Not about David. About everything. About you." I listened. I didn't interrupt. I didn't comfort her either. "I'll think about it," I said, "but not tonight." I ended the call. David was awake beside me, staring at the ceiling. That was the first honest thing Chloe had said to me in years. But honesty, once, doesn't undo a lifetime. My mother's business followed soon after. 2 stores closed within weeks. Empty shelves, dark windows, signs replaced displays. 3 locations remained, but they were barely holding on. For the first time in their lives, nothing was working the way they expected. And for the first time in mine, I wasn't there to fix it. The consequences didn't end that night. They spread quietly, in my parents' social circle. Reputation was everything, and word traveled fast. Someone who had been at the gala told someone else, then another. Soon everyone knew. A mother who told her entire family to skip her daughter's wedding, only to show up when she discovered who the husband was. That story followed my mother everywhere. Invitations stopped coming. People stopped calling. The same circles she had spent decades building slowly closed around her. 1 week later, she was removed from a committee she had been part of for years. Another call came from my father. His biggest client ended their contract. "I need someone I can trust," she told him. He didn't argue. He couldn't. My mother tried one last time to control the narrative. She posted an old photo of me as a child, paint on my hands, smiling, captioned with pride she had never shown me in real life. I reported the post. Then I blocked her. Nora told me later about a moment she heard from someone who worked at one of my mother's stores. Late at night, the lights still on, the store nearly empty. My mother sitting alone, surrounded by mirrors and silence, asking out loud, "When did I become this person?" But she still didn't call to apologize. She called to ask if I could get David to review her business plan. That was all I needed to know. 3 weeks after the gala, I sat at my desk, the same small desk I had always worked at, the same place where I had built everything on my own. I wrote letters, one for each of them. Nora reviewed them carefully, making sure every word was clear and final. What remained was simple. "I'm not writing this out of anger. I'm writing this out of clarity. For 31 years, I waited for this family to see me. I made myself smaller, quieter, easier to ignore. It was never enough. You traveled across states for a celebration. You couldn't drive 2 hours from my wedding. You found my husband in 34 days, but you never found me in 31 years. I wish you well, but I won't be available anymore. Not for dinners, not for holidays, not for business. This isn't punishment. This is peace. I don't need you to understand. I just need you to stop knocking on a door I've finally closed." I sent each letter, tracked, confirmed, delivered. Then I changed my number, blocked every account, cut every line of access. Nora became the only way anyone could reach me, and only in emergencies. That evening, I stood on the balcony with David. The city stretched out below us, quiet and steady. I leaned into him and breathed in deeply. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for anyone to choose me. Life didn't feel empty after that. It felt quiet in a way I had never experienced before. 6 months passed, and everything settled into place. Ethan's bankruptcy was finalized. His license was revoked. His company no longer existed. Chloe filed for divorce soon after. There was nothing to divide. No assets left. No illusion left either. She gave birth to a baby girl in July. She named her Hope. She moved back in with my mother and started working a part-time job. Her first real paycheck in years. She didn't call me. She respected the boundary. But in October, Nora handed me a birthday card. Inside, Chloe had written, "I understand now. I hope one day you'll let me try again. No pressure." I read it once, then set it aside. My mother lost another store that fall. Only 2 remained, both struggling. She sold things she once valued more than people. Her social life faded with her finances. The world she built had never been as solid as she believed. My father lost more clients, downsized everything. He sent me a letter. It didn't ask for help. It just asked if we could talk. I didn't respond, but I didn't throw it away either. As for me, everything changed. I signed a major contract with the foundation. the biggest project of my career, and I earned it myself. Not because of David, because of me. We moved to a house outside the city, quiet, open, peaceful. David kept his simple routines, and I built a studio filled with light above the fireplace. I finally hung that painting, the one I made when I was 14, the one no one ever displayed. It took 17 years, not because I forgot it, because I finally found a place worthy of it. In November, another card came, handwritten, simple, from Chloe. I named her Hope, because I want to be different. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know I'm trying. Inside was a small photo, a baby with wide eyes and soft features. On the back, one sentence. She has your eyes. I stared at it for a long time. Then I placed it gently on my desk. Not hidden, not embraced. Just there. A quiet beginning. Or maybe just a possibility. I placed the photo on my desk beside my laptop and left it there. I didn't call. I didn't reply. But I didn't hide it either. That night, David noticed it. He picked it up, studied the tiny face, and smiled softly. She's beautiful. She is. I said, I just hope Chloe gives her what we never had. Someone who shows up. After he left the room, I sat there for a long time, thinking about what it means to forgive without reopening the door, about how boundaries aren't walls, they're doors. And this time, I was the one holding the key. Chloe might change. Maybe she already was, or maybe she wasn't. People can break open and still choose to close again. And I had learned something the hard way. You can't build your life on someone else's potential. I didn't walk away because I stopped caring. I walked away because I finally started caring about myself. Now I'm sitting on the porch, telling you this. The air is cool. The trees have turned gold and copper. The world feels quiet in the best way. There's a cup of coffee in my hand. David is inside, making dinner. The same simple recipe from the night everything changed. The night I stopped answering calls and started choosing myself. My phone is quieter now. No constant messages. No empty conversations. Just a few names that matter. People who show up. People who stay. The old group chat is gone. The long dinners where I felt invisible are gone. Even that empty seat at the end of the table is gone, because I finally stood up and walked away from it. My mother was right about one thing. My wedding was nothing like Chloe's. Hers was a performance. Mine was a promise. And the only people who needed to witness it were the ones who were actually there. I pick up my iPad and start sketching. The image comes naturally. A single chair in a field of wildflowers. Not empty. Just waiting. David steps outside and sits beside me. What are you drawing? He asks. Something I should have created a long time ago. He smiles. The sky turns darker. The evening settles in. And I realize something I wish I had understood years earlier. The opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference. It's only showing up when it's convenient. If there's one thing I'm proud of, it's not what I said that night at the gala. It's what I felt the next morning. I looked at my phone, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like anything was missing. If you would have done what I did, walk away, protect your self-worth, and stop chasing love that was never given comment like so I know I made the right choice. But if you would choose to lower your value just to hold on to family, you can honestly write dislike. And if you're still thinking, still torn between heart and logic, write other choice, because sometimes the hardest part isn't the decision, it's learning to live with it. I didn't lose my family in one moment. I lost them slowly, in all the moments they didn't show up. And maybe that's the first lesson I learned from all of this. Love is not what people say. It's what they do. It's presence. It's effort. It's choosing someone even when it's inconvenient. For years, I thought if I tried harder, stayed quieter, made myself easier to love, they would finally see me. But the truth is, the right people don't need you to shrink in order to stay. There's a quiet kind of strength in setting boundaries. It doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like silence, like not replying, like closing a door gently instead of slamming it. And that strength changes everything. Because once you stop chasing validation from people who never gave it, you start seeing your own value more clearly. You start building a life where you are not the afterthought, not the empty chair, but the person who decides where they belong. If you've made it this far, I really want to ask you something. Did you listen all the way to the end? Because if you did, that already says something about you. It means you care. It means you reflect. And that matters more than you think. Now, maybe stand up, stretch your body, take a deep breath, drink a glass of water, or just sit quietly for a minute without your phone. Give yourself that moment. You deserve it. And if this story meant something to you, if you saw a part of yourself in it, I'd love for you to stay connected. You can subscribe to the channel, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, or simply like and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. When you do that, you're not just supporting me, you're helping build a space where people feel seen, understood, and less alone. You matter here. Your story matters here. Thank you for listening. Truly. And I'll see you in the next story.